You have reached the Geek Elite. Good luck.
Welcome, everybody, to a very special We Have Issues interview. As always, I am your host, Keith, and I'm joined today by comic creator Terry Mayo.
Well, hello, Keith. Thank you for having me on.
Of course, we're excited to have you on. Unfortunately, those of you who listen to us regularly know my stalwart sidekick, Josue, was unable to join us today. But that's fine. He's being very busy this week, and he'll be making an appearance on another person's podcast tomorrow. So I gave him the day off. But I did want to go ahead and take this time to speak with Terry about his project that's upcoming. Something very exciting I want to talk to you guys about that I think our audience in particular is going to be interested in because it intersects several things that our group tends to like quite a bit. So, but as we jump,
I don't know what that says about your group. But...
We're very strange people.
My people.
Yeah. So we're going to launch into that, but I definitely want to go ahead and take a moment to get to know Terry. As we always do, it's important to get to know you guys as people and get to know kind of where you came from. So I would like to personally start with what I always call your secret origin. I think everybody's story of how they got into comics, both as a fan and or professionally, is interesting, and it's like a fun story to share with each other. So I'm just curious, how did you find your way into comics?
I've always been a fan. I mean, my mom brought me a big box of comics when I was like five-ish, and it was like old 70s, like Jonah Hex and Sergeant Rock and stuff like that. So that's kind of where the discovery of it all, and like the Archie comics at the newsstand and whatnot. But I guess the evolution started of like me writing them and wanting to be part of that world. I had cancer when I was about 15, freshman, sophomore in high school ish, and I couldn't do much. I would stay at the Ronald McDonald House and then go for a surgery, have chemo, and then this was like a year and a half of my life just in and out of the cancer hospital. And so my stepmom, she brought me a journal and she brought me comic books, and she was like, "Here, I know you're always reading them, so let's start writing them." So she gave me a journal. I started writing, and that's more of like a general synopsis of it, but it was more drawn out than that. But so I spent a lot of that time really just writing my thoughts and writing, and then it came into like little panels, and that's my first comic book ever was me at 15, 16 years old in a journal. I've still got it somewhere, I'm sure. But that's kind of where the evolution started, and then it just kind of grew from there. I started doing screenwriting in the 90s and sold a few when I thought I was going to be Quentin Tarantino for a minute, but that didn't work out. Sold a few, but nothing ever was made. And then I have about eight children, 7 children, 1 on the way. And so life kind of puts things on pause sometimes, but about 5-6 years ago is when I was first published, and it's just been uphill since there. But just boom, 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 one thing after another. It's been interesting. It's been fun.
Yeah, man, that's just really interesting. It's kind of funny because, like I said, our listeners, obviously, the first secret origin that we've shared was mine, and ironically, I got into comics as a reader because when I was probably about the same age you were, I went to an auction with my stepdad, and there was a box of comics, and I could just see an issue of X Factor on top, and I was vaguely aware of the X-Men. Like I watched the Saturday morning cartoon, and I convinced him to bid on it. It was like $20, and he got it for me, and that's how I got into comics. So it's just funny we both got a box from like that's really cool. So, but yeah, that's awesome, man. So tell us more about yourself as well. I mean, like you mentioned screenwriting. Like it sounds like you have a pretty like big interest in arts and culture and stuff, which is always really cool. And I can tell by your hat, obviously, you have certain tastes. So.
that I'm quite cultured because of my Boba Fett hat.
So yeah, like tell us what you're kind of into. Like Any specific
Uh,
fandoms that really latch you on?
I don't know. I don't know if it's a Renaissance fandom or Renaissance man of fandom, but I'm kind of dabbling a lot of things. I'm into Dungeons and Dragons. I've been playing since third edition, and I actually DM Dungeon Master a campaign over on Mainframe Comic Con. A group of us just kind of go online and do it. So there's that aspect of it, and then Star Wars. I mean, you gotta. I don't know. I don't want to know the answer, but I can't imagine there's too many people that haven't heard of Star Wars. but but that's I grew up with it. One of my first memories was just standing in the lobby waiting to watch Empire Strikes Back, and just the feeling. I mean, it's just that's how intense the feeling was at like however old I was.
Yeah.
Uh, it was crazy, and it really built on it from there. So anything Star Wars I'm into, anything horror. I love horror movies. So it's yeah, I'm just if it's nerdy, I'm kind of drawn to it.
All right. Well, that draws two quick follow-up questions. You mentioned that D&D, you actually started around when I did third edition.
Mhm.
And are you the forever DM now? Like amongst your friends?
No, I mean, I actually play with a bunch of. I think there's only maybe one person in our group that hasn't ever DM'd, and we kind of have taken turns. So it's. I haven't found myself being the forever, and maybe it's just because we all have our own busy lives, and
Yeah.
occasionally we need a break, and it's like, okay, we're gonna have a break in this campaign, or we're gonna start on something like a one shot or a mini
Yeah.
or something like that.
Nice.
But I haven't been pigeonholed into that yet. I
Do you
feel
have a
like they want me
oh
to because they're like, "Oh, you're so good at this. You should do this all the time." And I'm like, maybe not.
yeah, that I've run into that where I'm the forever DM, and it's a shame because you read an adventure and you're like, I wish I was playing this adventure instead of like running it. Like, yeah,
Right?
but it's also fun. Like, it's its own fun. So,
Yeah.
is there a specific race class you generate towards D&D wise?
Recently from the what is it, the 5e? I've enjoyed playing a Grung rogue lately. And it's just, I mean, there's nothing special about it. He's a little Grung assassin, but the poison skin on him just kind of, and the ability to leap around. I don't know. It's just I have fun playing this tiny little frog assassin, and it's just so much fun because I do pour myself more into the role play than anything.
Hmm.
And I told my group, I said, before we ever even start, I watch about 10 minutes of Gerard Butler in like any movie, really, because my grung has like this Scottish accent and he talks like this, and he's, you know. So I'm into the role play. I mean, the mechanics are kind of they're just a rogue assassin. It's really basic, nothing
Yeah,
magic about it, but I really really love playing
that's awesome. Yeah, and then Star Wars. Just quick impression.
it.
Obviously, you're talking about the original trilogy, but just quick overview. What do you think of the prequels, sequels? What do you think of the Mandalorian? How do you like Star Wars as a whole as it's evolved?
I mean, my heart's always going to be with Empire Strikes Back, and I don't know if
Right.
that's just because it was my first exposure. Well, not my first, but it's my first exposure that I remember.
Mhm.
My parents said they took me to the first movie, but I don't know. I was a baby,
Yeah.
so who knows?
Well, Empire is also arguably the best movie of all of them. Like that's
I
yeah,
wouldn't even argue it. I would
yeah,
just say
yeah, yeah,
it. I mean, yeah, no, I love that movie. The Star Wars or not, it's in my top three. So,
yeah.
um, but yeah, no, I do. I am a fan of the originals of the original three.
Hmm.
The prequels, I took all my kids to them, so they do have a special place in my heart for that. And that I got to experience them the way I experienced them as a kid. I was the dad taking my kids to go see them for their first Star Wars experience. So they're always special for me in that way. A bit let down by the last three, more so the last one I wasn't the hugest fan,
Yeah,
the biggest fan of. But I kind of take the mindset of any movie I watch. I know that a lot goes into it. I know that somebody wrote that and was proud of it, and directed that and was proud of it, and acted in it and was proud of it. So I know it's art. So I
yeah,
try to appreciate it for what it is, and at the same time, I know it's like a multimedia consumption thing that you rate it whether you want to or not, and
yeah,
it's at the lower end for me.
yeah,
Mandalorian, hats off. I thought it was great. Loved the first season.
yeah.
I thought the second season was great too. I haven't got into the Bad Batch yet. Kind
Oh,
of
me neither. I want
waiting
to.
for, yeah, I know, right? I'm waiting for my college age kids to get home, and then we're gonna dive into it.
Nice. And then I of course I have to ask about not to harp on Star Wars too much, but I always love picking brains of Star Wars fans.
Mm,
Solo. So I loved Solo.
okay.
And I think it was very underrated, but I know it's a really polarizing film. So I'm curious what you thought of that one too.
I enjoyed it. I can
Mhm.
say honestly that I've maybe only seen it twice, maybe,
Mhm.
whereas the other ones I've seen multiple times.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I enjoyed Rogue One more, and I don't know if it was because it was, for me, it felt like tied into that original feeling. You know, it brought back that
Yeah.
nostalgia feeling for me, where I was hoping Solo would do that as well, but it felt so detached for me that it didn't.
Mm.
It was still enjoyable. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the acting. I enjoyed the story. It's not like it was flawed. I didn't
Mhm.
feel like it just didn't hold my attention as much, I feel like.
Gotcha. Yeah. It was it like I said, it's a polarizing film. So
Yeah, yeah.
awesome. All right. Well, and then you mentioned one last thing. I think this is going to transition pretty nicely into what we're talking about today. But you mentioned horror.
Hmm.
Um, so my co-host and one of our frequent guests are massive horror fans. And specifically my frequent guest Thomas is a really big horror fan. He used to have a segment where do the Shudder movie of the week. He'd always watch a different movie on Shudder every week for us.
Okay.
So give me a horror recommendation, something that you just you love, maybe something people haven't heard much about, you
Oh
know,
wow, haven't heard much about.
or just whatever you would be your favorite was, whatever
Yeah,
comes
I
to
mean
mind.
my
So
go-to is always the original Night of the Living Dead from the
oh
60s, and
yes, good
it's I mean
stuff.
it's a great movie. And is that Thomas Saucedo? Is that who you're talking about, or is that who's
No,
Tom?
it's a
Different
different
Thomas?
Thomas.
Okay.
He's also from Geek Network though.
Okay. All
So
right. I was just wondering because
there's two Thomases there.
we had this
So,
whole conversation. I had this with Thomas, but but anyways, yeah. No, I mean, I was maybe fifth grade when I saw Night of the Living Dead, and it was like on the old USA Network, like Gilbert Godfrey Up All Night and that kind of thing.
yeah.
And my parents had gone to a hospital party. 'Cause my mom worked there, and I stayed home with the dogs, and it was on, and that was probably the biggest mistake of my life because like every 5 minutes I swore the doors were about to burst in with zombies coming in, and and it was just the for me it was the TV and the way that the world collapsing from the outside was presented through the TV that just seemed so like I mean I was literally sitting on the edge of my seat without being in a seat because I was standing up like waiting to run for the entire movie, and it was and it's still like that when I watch it. I just get captivated by just this this little horror play that's going on TV. So,
Yeah.
and I don't know if it's a nostalgia thing that I love it so much, or if it's just because it's a great movie. But I'm gonna say it's because it's a great movie. So I don't know, but that's my go-to as far as my favorite. I'm a big zombie fan, big possession fan. Like demonic possession, that kind of stuff. Less so towards the slasher, but I mean I enjoy them, but they're more popcorn than anything. I don't really get scared.
Yeah, definitely. Nice. Yeah, those classic horror movies. One of my best friends in high school was a big horror guy, and we would go to like FYE when that was still really a thing, and get all these weird horror movies I've never heard of. And he's like, "You have to see this." So he'd show me stuff like Reanimator and all this crazy crap.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's just weird. I'm not a big horror fan, but I know way too much about horror because of these people. So yeah.
They're trying to
Uh,
influence you with their horrorness.
yes. So all right, so that kicks us over to why we're here. So we're here to talk about your Kickstarter for Buddy Number One, an upcoming comic. So the pitch we got on here is Milo and Otis meets The Exorcist, and the first thing I gotta know, because this does star an adorable little pug named Buddy,
Mhm.
and if you guys watch the trailer on Kickstarter, the trailer video, which is excellent, by the way. I love the over the topness of your intro and everything. I was like, this is great. And when you said like, now getting to know you and with the D&D background, I'm like, oh yeah, he's a DM. I can see that now.
You can see that now.
So, with all that, I got to ask, is Buddy a real dog?
Buddy is a real dog, and
Yeah.
I actually I don't know if he's on my social media. I know that I've posted the picture a few times, but he was a real dog, and he was just the most annoying pug you can imagine. Just oh my God, he was obstinate and like so many times I was like I just want to take this dog to the pound, but you know it's just kind of one of those animals.
Yeah.
You can't help but love him because he's just so goofy and dumb. And just love that dog.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, but Buddy's real dog, and a lot of the things in there, you know, I could totally see Buddy doing.
Yeah. I in the trailer there was a brief shot of a real photo of a pug
Hmm.
when you said Buddy, and I'm like, I bet that's a real Buddy. Like I
That
bet
was
that was
that
his.
was Buddy. That was Buddy wearing a penguin hat.
That's awesome. But yeah, back to the pitch. So it's Milo and Otis meets the Exorcist. So we're taking something really cute and adding a horror vibe to it. So when I alluded at earlier that our audience loves certain things, those are two things that we like. We love those two, and also just juxtapositioning those two.
Mhm.
Um, and I really like this, and I don't know if this is a trend or something that's going on in comics, but we're getting more and more books that are this kind of genre, which is cute but scary at the same time, and
Mhm.
specifically with animals, I think is really cool. So, tell me a bit more about Buddy. What can we expect from it? Um, do you have a planned like length? I know this is a number one, but do you have like a definite idea of how long you want it to go? Yeah.
Yeah. So for this first arc, I mean, we do have it out to be so. Buddy, the first issue is 30 pages, and we're about less than $200 away from our first stretch goal, which will add another 6 pages. So it'll be about 36 pages that we send out to backers. We've already met our goal, so it's coming out. Um, but the first arc is 3 pages, roughly 30 pages each, 22 to 30 pages, depending on the issue. And the long-term plan, at least hopefully, would be that either we're going to put this out independently and just keep doing this through Kickstarter. We are talking to a few publishers, so we might go that route. And if Buddy comes out through publishing, it'll be up to them on what happens from there as far as like release dates and stuff.
Mhm.
But I do have it written out through a couple different arcs, and it is more just the feel of the book. I didn't want to shy away from the horror aspect of it, but also more of that feel of like a Nightmare Before Christmas or like Paranorman or
Mhm.
Frankenweenie or whatever you want to go to, whatever your callback would be.
Yeah.
It is more that thing where it's not shying away from what that seriousness is, but it's in this world. It is in this playful world. The other books that I've written have been more serious, so they've been more R-rated, I guess you could say. There's cursing and nudity and all this other stuff that my younger kids they're not exposed to. At least not while I'm around. Maybe on YouTube, I'm sure they hear worse than is in any of my books. But I wanted to write something that all my kids could pick up and read and enjoy and that kind of stuff because the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and they're all into horror and that kind of stuff as well. So it just seemed like a natural fit.
That's awesome. So yeah, how did you come up with okay, so you got a dog named Buddy, and
Mhm.
how did that go to demonic possession? Like like because in my head, hearing you talk about him earlier, where you're like, he's dumb, but I love him, basically. Like
Mhm.
I'm just imagining that dog that barks at everything, and maybe you're sitting there thinking, like, does he know something we don't? Is someone
Yeah, yeah.
possessed that
No,
he's
I
trying
mean
to tell us?
it's funny that you mentioned that because I mean, I mentioned I have a lot of kids, and so I live in California now, Southern California, and all my family is in Texas. So we would drive a couple times a year from California to Texas, and there's like that area, like right around either before or after Yuma, I can't remember, but it's where the radio stations just kind of dropped. At least in the early 2000s, they would just drop, and it was just silence or static.
Yeah.
Um, so I would tell the kids stories, and it'd be like, with these four brothers, because there were four boys at the time, four brothers, and they're in this wasteland, and they're fighting, and they got superhero powers, and this and that. And then when we got Buddy, we added Buddy into those stories. So I'd be telling my kids stories about these four brothers and this dumb pug and fighting evil and stuff. So I was driving one night, the kids were all asleep, and before we had left, Buddy was standing at the bottom of the stairs and just looking up at the top of the stairs and just barking, and there was nothing there.
Yeah.
And so I started recalling that, and I was like, "Whoa, wonder what he was seeing, that kind of thing. So, and it just, that's where the kernel started, at least. And then 2 years ago, Dave Swartz and Dave he's a comic book writer and artist, so he's
Mhm.
done Feast or Famine, and he's working on Confederate Monster right now. But we started working on Buddy, and he does all the art, and he was down with the idea, and he was like, "Oh, I can totally see this. This will be cool. We can make toys, that kind of stuff." But yeah, I think I'm getting tangential, but basically that's the gist of Buddy.
Awesome. Yeah. And going over to Dave a bit, it's looking at the art, it does what I said, like the whole juxtaposition of cute versus horror. You really have to walk a fine line with cute, and I think he does a really, really good job with it. Like the animation style is adorable, but at the same time, you can see, oh, this could be dark, like
Yeah,
there's a darkness to it. Just looking at the character designs, because you guys have a nice lineup of all the characters.
yeah, yeah,
And
and yeah.
yeah, good.
No, no, we're both kind of in the same vein as far as like there's a song from the 70s that when my kids ask me about, like real life situations or stuff like that, and I'm like, well, there are quoting a song, it's like, there are no good guys, there are no bad guys, there's just you and me and we just disagree. So that's my blanket explanation for people, the yin and yang of people. And I even have the tattoos, like the good versus evil in my arms and stuff. And so that's kind of ingrained in me. And so that's what I try to put out in my books, as far as like, well, yes, there's this world and it's cute and it's adorable. And then if you just peel back the layer, you see all the hobgoblins behind the pages. So I enjoy that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, definitely. So as you mentioned, you guys have already hit the goal of 5,000, which is awesome. You still got 21 days to go.
mhm,
Um, and you mentioned that we have some stretch goals. The first one is to add some pages to the issue,
mhm. Yeah.
and you're really close to that, it looks like. So do you have any others in mind? I didn't see any other stretch goals
Yeah,
that I'm
we
finding
do,
real
we
quick.
do. And I try to keep them close to the vest, and I don't know if that's different because I do see other campaigns and they blast them all out, but I do try to keep them a little bit closer to the vest, just so I can like make them be like here it is, surprise. But yeah, the first stretch goal is the 6 pages going to be added, and it's more of like a buddy origins story.
Hmm.
With if you've checked out any of the stuff on Kickstarter, you've seen maybe this totem, this little two-headed serpent totem. So
Hmm.
it's kind of the story of the origin of the totem, the origin of Buddy, kind of told side by side and linking it together. So there's that. That one is being, I wrote that one. Jason here, he's drawing that one. And then the colors are going to be, if you see the Stan Yak variant
Hmm.
on there, Julio Rojas did the colors for that cover. He's doing the colors for the 6 pages.
Oh, that's
We're also
awesome.
talking about some other stuff. Well, I mean, I guess I can announce it. At $7,500, we're looking at having produced the totem itself to send out to backers as an add-on.
Ooh,
So yeah, so if you want to go in and add on your own little possessed totem, it can be shipped in the mail to you.
that's really cool.
So it'll be fun, and some other stuff, some prints and some pins and some variant covers, and I mean we have some add-ons where Dave will do a commission piece for you, so you can add it to your wall or
Yeah.
or draw you inside the world of Buddy. So there's a lot of cool stuff in there.
Yeah, I'm looking at the mini prints that are listed, and it's great because they are all definitively different styles and such. But you mentioned the Stan Yak cover. That is
Mhm.
straight horror. Like,
That
I
is
love it.
that is straight up horror. Yeah, that's the straight up horror one, and I really dig that one. I mean, if and if you zoom in on the pug in that one, I mean that's straight up Buddy right there. That's just a goofy tongue hanging out the mouth, just has no clue what he's doing. That's Buddy. But I love that cover. It's a great cover.
Yeah. One thing that I love about Kickstarters, a good Kickstarter, is all the add-ons, like
Mm,
really cool little add-ons. So just to let our listeners know, some of the great things on here I'm seeing. There's a 1.5 inch Buddy enamel pin, which looks pretty cute. There's a die cut sticker. And the thing that probably caught my eye the most is an actual trading card, a rookie card for Buddy,
mhm,
which I love that. I love that trading cards, like you're seeing them more and more again,
mhm.
and I just love that idea. Like I love that something that I did in the early 90s is coming back around, and that's really cool. So
Yeah, I sent the picture of well, since you said you were into it, of the Deathlock rookie card
mhm.
from the '90s Marvel set over to
Yes.
David. I was like, this is what I want, but I want Buddy. So then he came back with that, and I was like, okay, perfect.
Yeah, I love the rookies like thing
Yeah,
because it's like because I'm also a sports fan, but also a huge comic nerd. So yeah, you'd see like Deathlock rookies, and you're like, what? like you're using that term, like, and
yeah,
just I love that though. That's great. But
yeah.
yeah. So I mean, I obviously we're gonna be back in this after we get done talking. But I just wanted to like yeah, kind of go over the details of everything. It's just really cool and really interesting and specifically I'm looking at the art there's a panel that is like a gif and it's like being colored. It's like the
Hmm.
first panel on the page and you mentioned kind of like the art styles, mentioned like Paranorman and stuff. Like there's definitely some like almost Cartoon Network vibes to some of this too. I really
Hmm.
like the mother,
Hmm.
like she's very much like a almost like a Kim Possible character. Like I don't
She
know, like
is. She is. Yeah. And it and it's strange the amount of comments that I get about how hot the mom is, and I'm like, I don't even think that until you bring it up. But I mean, the mom does have some curves, but that wasn't an intentional thing.
we're trying to sell the mom as a
I
hot
know
woman.
this
Like,
isn't
yeah,
have her as a pinup or something.
yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, and then so what is your experience so far with Kickstarter as like an organization? Because I'm
Mhm.
very curious about this. I know people have a lot of options with how they crowdfund,
Right.
Indiegogo and stuff like that. I always heard most people for Kickstarter. What do you think so far?
Well, I've done one other Kickstarter campaign, and that was about 3 years ago. And I kind of was, at least my genesis was that I was not down for Kickstarter. I just felt like it
Mhm.
wasn't my avenue. When I did my first campaign, I was already with a publisher, and we were kickstarting the graphic novel for The Wicked Righteous,
Mhm.
and which was my first series. And so I was like, well, I mean, I'm already with a publisher, and I feel like this maybe Kickstarter is maybe for more the indie people to kind of get that jump up. At
Right.
least that was my feeling back then. As things changed and things evolved, and through after doing my first Kickstarter campaign, and then like seeing the amount of people, like crazy, insane, talented people on Kickstarter and Indiegogo, I mean, it really is truly a viable option for everybody. I feel like. And I know there's like thoughts on both sides of the fence, still wanting to keep it pure as far as like, well, this should be an indie platform and a way for, unpublished people to get their work out.
Yeah.
Um, but I feel like the more the merrier, man. I mean, it's just the more people there that have like some sort of notoriety behind their name, it's only bringing eyes to other products, right? So if Keanu Reeves has a book out there, people are going there that maybe wouldn't even be in the comic book section, and maybe they're going to look at other stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, why try to stop that?
Yeah, no, that's a great example because when Berserker #1 came out and I was in my comic book store spending way too much on comics,
Yeah,
I actually saw a guy come in to pick up that book specifically and then ask the guy behind the counter what's been going on with these other books. I haven't really picked up comics lately. And I'm like, yeah, see, that's the goal right there.
that's yeah, right.
Yeah. High tide rises all ships. So,
There you
uh,
go. There you
but
go. And I'm a big believer that if you want to create something, you should create it, whether it's like a web
yeah,
comic, a journal that your stepmom gives you, whatever the case may be, just create, just do it.
yeah, totally. I agree. So that's awesome. Yeah, because like I said, we work with Kickstarter a lot on our show. That is something that we feel pretty strongly about is independent comics, and we always try our best to reach out to as many independent publishers as we can, which can be difficult finding the comics because usually they don't order too many of them, you know. So
Yeah.
the smaller the publisher, the harder it gets. So yeah. But yeah, Kickstarter has been a really great thing. We've done a lot of we backed a lot of Kickstarter. So, but yeah, I was curious specifically because I know the big thing with Kickstarter is it's all or nothing,
Hmm.
unlike some others where you have to hit the goal. So um, I just thought that was kind of curious to see what you thought because I've heard like varying accounts on that. Some people don't like the all or nothing. Some would prefer to get the
Yeah.
progress and et cetera. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I kind of like the all or nothing. I've never done Indiegogo, and I have
yeah.
people like Dave the artist. He has his book Confederate Monster is over on Indiegogo, and he enjoys it and he likes it, and
Hmm.
his was successful, and it's still doing really good. Um, but I've never done it, and his is the first book I've ever backed on Indiegogo, I think. But I like Kickstarter, and it's kind of one of those things for me at least, because I'd kind of try to stay out of like the politics of everything, but
Yeah.
it's more preference. Like I prefer Star Wars over Star Trek. I prefer Coke over Pepsi. I prefer Marvel over DC. Unless someone from DC is listening, then I love DC. But uh, and I prefer Kickstarter over Indiegogo, and maybe it's just a preference thing.
Yeah, gotcha. That makes sense. So awesome. Okay. Well, next up, I want to very quickly talk about our sister show, the Jukebox Vertigo. Jukebox Vertigo, hosted by my co-host Josue, is a show where we are continuously building what we call an infinite playlist. Every week we have a different category, and we each nominate 3 songs to add to the playlist, and it goes up on every major music platform.
Okay.
And whenever we have a guest, especially comic book creators, because we know comic book creators tend to really love music for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's because something to throw in the background while you're working, and yeah. So, and creative types, So, whenever we have a guest, we always like to go ahead and see if we can get a nomination from you all to add to our next playlist. Our next category is covers that are better than the original.
Okay.
And from what I've talked to you about, you have a pretty, I think, great era of music in your life to really have an idea of some. So did you have just one song you think that the cover was better than the original off the top of your head?
I mean, off the top of my head, as far as covers, there's actually 2. Am I able to give 2? Is that all right?
Yeah. Well, he'll love
that, and one of them maybe it won't count. Maybe it'll disqualify itself. But the first one that I would I'll this will be my hill to die on. Prince wrote the song. Sinead O'Connor sang it first, but his cover of "Nothing Compares to You" is just I listen to that frequently. It's just a great song.
That's an excellent choice.
love his cover of it, and it's just I don't know. In my opinion, no one could play the guitar like Prince could play the guitar, and his licks in that are just amazing.
Yeah.
So Nothing Compares to You, Prince. Cover song of a song he wrote that he didn't sing first, but
yeah, his guitar skills are really underrated. They're not talked about enough.
Right?
He's incredible.
I mean, even the Super Bowl commercial or Super Bowl show that he did however long ago, I'll still pull that up on YouTube because I mean, him playing Purple Rain in the rain at the Super Bowl is like, I mean, it's still good. I'm getting chills just talking about it. So I'm a big Prince fan. I don't know if I let that out of the bag. And then my second one is more. I'll still listen to it, but I can't even remember who sings it originally. Drowning Pool, maybe, but Down with the Sickness. But Richard Cheese's cover of it. It was actually in the movie
it's
Dawn of the Dead.
Disturbed.
Okay, all right. But his cover of it for the Dawn of the Dead movie.
What was his name?
Richard Cheese.
Richard Cheese. Okay. I've never heard of this, and I know at least 2 guys that are probably going to love this one. So.
I mean, it's more like that loungy, oh, yeah. Get up or get down with the sickness. I mean, it's just like, it's loungy.
Oh, that's great. I love that.
It's great. It sticks out for me.
Great. All right. And looking forward, I know obviously you're going to be focused on Buddy right now. This is your goal and everything, but do you have anything else coming up in the pipeline? Anything else you want to like give us a heads up on? Anything like that?
Sure. Yeah. So Buddy is on the forefront right now. So that one, and I have the 2 more issues of that one coming out either independently or through a publisher. Then I'm working on I guess you could call it a Dungeon and Dragons inspired because it's not licensed, but inspired book with a buddy of mine named Chris Terry. He's a local artist here in San Diego, so we're coming out with a little mini for that. And it takes place in like 93, January 94 in Northridge, California. So if anybody wanted to look up what was happening in Northridge, California in January 94, you kind of get a gist of the feel for the book. But and that one probably is either later this year or early 2022. And then I have a little slice of life type thing called BFE Texas. I was born and raised in Texas, so it's kind of like not an autobiographical, but it's more slice of life, I guess you could say.
Gotcha. Do
Yeah.
you mind to ask where in Texas?
A little town called Seminole, Texas, right there on it's. I think when I was living there, it was about 3 to 4 thousand population,
Hmm.
and BFE just. I don't know if you know. I don't know what the language on this show is, but
That's fine.
it's bumfuck Egypt, Texas, basically. So when anybody around there, because there was no other towns around, so they
Yeah.
were like, "Welcome to BFE."
I actually lived my high school and college years in a small town in East Texas.
Oh yeah,
So in the middle of nowhere. So yeah.
yeah.
Like
So then there you go.
an hour outside of a town that's out an hour outside of a town. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I think we had one stoplight in that town, and then they were just now getting a Walmart when I was about to leave. So it was it was huge news.
That's always the highlight. And people think that's a
Right.
joke, but no, that's 100%. Like, let's
It's
go
a
to the
big
Walmart.
it's a big deal, and I thought it was huge. But I mean, I went back there a couple years ago, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this town is so tiny." But it seemed like an oasis of nothing when I lived there, and now it's just nothing. But I love you, Seminole, if you're listening.
Yeah, you can't go home again. That's what
Yeah,
they say. So
yeah.
awesome, man. All right. Well, Terry, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited about the project. Like I said, expect my pledge after this. I'm going to sit down and look at the tiers. I always overspend on Kickstarter. So
Well, I will
uh,
not argue with you if you do that. So
awesome. So, guys, you can always check Terry out on Twitter at MayoTL. Is that the best way for people to reach out to you? Is Twitter?
yeah, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of it is Mayo TL, but Twitter I'm on probably more.
Gotcha. Yeah, me too. And the artist Dave, you can reach him at Dave Schwartz Art. Schwartz is SWART and Z and then ART. Dave Schwartz Art. So you can reach out to him on Twitter as well. And for We Have Issues, you can check us out at Geek Elite Media, along with everything else on the Geek Elite channel, geekelitemedia.com as well. For We Have Issues itself, it does have a Twitter at WHI Podcast. And for my co-host Josue, it's Josue Reads Josue. For our producer Liz, it's WHI Podcast Liz. And for me, it's WHI Podcast Keith. Thank you again so much for joining me, and have a great day.
Thank you, Keith.
This concludes our broadcast. Beep.